Hey there, happy Friday. And I am super excited today because Teri Dreher is with us. She is, you are famous in the senior community. And Teri is a board certified patient advocate. And Teri's going to tell us what that is and how she helps. So welcome.
Okay, thank you, Betsy. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. So patient advocacy is a field that's been growing a lot over the last 10 years because people are just really concerned about how complex healthcare has become. They're concerned about patient safety, and the average family member can just be overwhelmed, confused, and frightened, and especially with a growing demographic in America of senior orphans that just don't have anybody close by to help them. It's a field that's really growing. I'm a former critical care nurse myself, so I tend to attract a lot of really complex cases. People come to my company, North Shore Patient Advocates, if they have a new diagnosis, or adult children come to us when they're lost and confused and overwhelmed about their aging parents' needs. They don't know what to do. There's a second epidemic, I call it, of dementia in our country right now. Alzheimer's is becoming just a huge problem. And sometimes adult children don't even know what the options are out there for helping their parents. And they're just scared and don't really know what to do. And there's a lot of senior exploitation and abuse going on too. So we get involved in a lot of legal protection of seniors, and we help people that are younger too. We have a lot of clients right now that have very complex, medically fragile situations, sometimes with the addition of mental health disorders and just a lot of different things that are very sad. And I think COVID really exposed a lot of the fractures and weak points in our healthcare system in America. And it's not that it really necessarily caused a lot of problems, but we're seeing a lot of doctors and nurses leaving the healthcare system, which is making everything worse right now. And I've just seen a lot of really scary things over the past couple of years in hospitals. So that's basically what I do. Think of me like a cross between an advanced practice nurse, a legal rights expert, and a guard dog. I help protect people.
I love the guard dog. So, let me ask you, let's hit on this, the senior orphans.
Sure.
And the people who the kids are out of town, and one of us in the field sees something and we're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Can we call you? Wait, look, what? How do they get help? I mean, this is speak to the senior orphan. I mean, it's great if you've got a lot of money and you have a whole bunch of family, you can ask some questions and then I'm sure it's easier. But when you don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, we get calls sometimes from hospital care managers that see the same people coming in and out of the hospital all the time, and they see signs of maybe people being exploited or abused by neighbors or people that aren't legally registered or hired caregivers. Unfortunately, in our country right now, most of senior financial exploitation and abuse is done by family members or caregivers or friends or even people that they have hired in the past to actually help them. I had a very sad case a few years ago. I had a friend in the senior care industry that called me, and she had gotten a call from a long-term friend that was really concerned about her aunt. Her aunt was a fairly wealthy person, but she was a senior orphan. She was all by herself, no family around, and her accountant had actually become her boyfriend. And before she knew what was happening, the accountant had moved into her home, had become her power of attorney for her health and her estate. And I was called in, and at that point, I could tell that the woman probably had a very short period of time to live. She had moderate to severely advanced dementia, congestive heart failure, and this man had complete control over her finances, over her health. And it was a very, very sad case of senior financial exploitation. And so he knew exactly what he was doing, and he exploited her. And I've seen wealthy people and not so wealthy people be exploited and abused. And I actually started a nonprofit company a couple years ago called Seniors Alone. Guardianship and advocacy services, just so that I could serve as a skilled advocate and guardian of the person for just so many people. And I work very closely with attorneys to help protect these unfortunate citizens, because it's rampant, and it just breaks my heart seeing people exploited.
Well, thank you for doing that. And so so I understand, if you go in a home and you see something like that, then do you call an attorney, somebody like Carrie Pack, is that,
Mhm,
or to get into the courts, or
mhm.
what do you do if you see it?
Well, I work very closely with Kerry Peck. He's one of Chicago's premier elder law
Mhm.
attorneys, and we work together a lot. Um, he he and I worked together on a case recently of a very wealthy man, but this man was being exploited by a Romanian friend who was having this man write this Romanian friend into his will. And anytime I see anything like that, I will go in and assess the situation and then call an attorney.
Call an attorney.
Unfortunately, if the person is still competent to make their own decisions, you have to get the patient or the exploited person to agree to let you help them. If
Right.
they're too afraid of the exploiter, it's very difficult to help. And
Mhm.
sometimes that person has them under their thumb. And if they're still competent to make their own decisions, you really can't help them. But in that case, I called Adult Protective Services. I called the police. I called the Senior Abuse Department in Chicago. And I did everything that I really could to help. But it's a serious problem in society. And I think if everybody that we know can become a whistleblower and either call Adult Protective Services, call the police, or even call me, and I give free advice on the phone all the time. If you see somebody that looks like they're cognitively or mentally impaired, those are the kind of cases that we like to help the most, because we can call lawyers and go into court emergently and get an emergency temporary guardianship.
Okay. Okay, that's really good for somebody like me to know, especially because I see people that I would call them orphan, and they
Uh-huh.
have a relative somewhere, but I go into their home to talk to them about selling. They are not, they're not able to make that decision. Nobody is making that decision for them, and
Mhm,
they're an accident waiting. They're just one fall away from a nightmare or a traffic
mhm,
accident or
mhm.
anything.
Yeah.
So is that something I could call and just discuss with you and see?
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. So let's talk a little bit more about some of your other services. So um, if people hire you, is that covered by Medicare, or how does that work?
No, it's not covered by Medicare or insurance, and there's a really good reason for that.
Okay. I
I
mean, I'm
will
just asking.
never I will never take any money from insurance, Medicare, doctors, or hospitals, because then I wouldn't be truly allegiant to the patient.
Okay.
And so our field operates very much like attorneys. We take a retainer and we bill on an hourly rate, because we always want to have that pure line of allegiance. We are going to work purely on behalf of the patient or the family, and whoever pays us as who we really belong to. And even if
Right.
the family is paying us, we still take our marching orders from the patient.
Great. I love that. And in my business too, I do a tremendous amount of referring,
Uh-huh.
but I am not financially connected in any
Yeah.
way, shape, or form. I have a fiduciary responsibility to my client
Mhm.
only. And then I say, call this person, call this person. Hopefully they can help. That's
Mhm.
it. So
Yes.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me some of the something surprising about yourself that and how you got into this and how this all happened.
Oh boy, well that's great. Great question, Betsy. Something really surprising about myself is that I used to be a semi-professional polo player.
Wow.
Yeah, when I
Where'd you
was
grow up? Wait, where'd you grow up?
no, this was actually in the Chicagoland area. I played in Oak Brook, and I actually have a trophy for winning the Chicago area women's polo championship. I won the winning goal, and I I loved playing polo. And when my boys got old enough to play hockey, I just loved going to all their hockey games too. I loved it. I was very assertive, and it taught me to be fearless. And I
Wow.
think being fearless is a really good quality to have when you're a patient advocate and an ICU nurse too, because you just really are all the time focused on your patients, and you're going to go to the wall for them completely.
Right.
But I really got into the field of advocacy because I saw how healthcare was changing, and I could tell that healthcare consumers, patients, and families were going to be in trouble. I was almost fired for advocating for a patient, and I said, "Oh boy, well if this is what healthcare is coming to, I don't want to work inside hospitals anymore." That was in 2011. It was the best career decision of my life.
And we're so happy that you made that change. And so, let's talk a little bit about how hospitals are. I mean, I was on a call this morning, and I even asked my peer. I said she was sick, and I said, I can't believe I'm asking you this question, but do you have a doctor you can go see? Because it's not so easy to just,
Yeah.
see somebody like the old days.
No. No, and that's a sad thing. Doctors and nurses in hospitals are getting so burned out lately. They're leaving in droves. COVID has just traumatized them more than I can say. And even though my heart is full of compassion for people that work in hospitals right now, I am most compassionate and focused on the patients. And so, I'll tell you a little story, couple little stories. Recently, I have a very complex patient who I have living at home right now. He has end-stage renal disease and multiple complex issues. He fortunately has enough money to live at home with
Very
myself
good.
as support and 24-hour home care support. He got a terrible infection under his skin called cellulitis, and he went to the hospital emergency room on Christmas Eve. He didn't want to bother me. I told him, "Don't you ever do that again." And he went, and his whole right arm was swollen with a great big red streak on the same side of his body as his hemodialysis catheter. And they sent him home. And they just sent him home. 2 days later, it was really serious, and I went back to the hospital, and they were about to send him home, and I had to literally bring a doctor into the room and show them assessment signs and say, "If this man gets septic and needs to have his catheter removed, it's going to be a life or death situation. So he needs to be admitted and go on IV antibiotics for 7 days." And that's what happened. And the man did okay. But to me, it was shocking as a healthcare professional to see how fast paced and surface the assessment skills are in emergency rooms right now. And honestly, about 9/10 of the nurses in emergency rooms right now are travel nurses that are making about $10,000 a week. So I don't want to insult the travel nurses because they're really needed right now, but they are there for the money. They're not long-term employees of the hospital, and they're just not as allegiant to the hospital or the patients in that community. And so I had to really insist upon what my client needed. And the week after, I had a patient having a stroke, and I had to go in and really talk in bullet points to the staff in the ER because they're so overwhelmed and so short staffed that you really have to speak clearly, politely, and firmly and tell them exactly what you need because everybody's overworked, understaffed, and it's scary out there. If you don't have an advocate that can be your person standing guard, you're really taking your life in your own hands. And please tell everybody don't go to the ER unless you're really having an emergency these days. It's the most expensive and most dangerous place to go if you're not having an actual bona fide emergency.
Um, this is sort of, is there a way to, I think you need to have a lot of people working for you that you're training to, because you're only one person. I
Yeah.
mean, this is like, I'm thinking back, my mother passed away right before COVID.
Mhm.
And if we weren't there on top of things,
Mhm.
and it wasn't even, it was pre-COVID. So it wasn't like the hospital was filled. The right hand absolutely didn't know what the left hand was doing. Doctor would say one thing, another doctor would say another thing, and the nurses, by the time it got into their computer, you can't be giving people medicine and wait for the system to catch up.
Yeah. And the truth is that doctors and nurses in hospitals are so busy today, nobody really has time to read all that stuff in the electronic health record. And that's where having your own private nurse advocate at your side can make a world of difference because we can go in and talk in medical language and tell everybody everything they need to know to keep you safe and insist upon you getting the best care. I mean, patient advocacy would not be a field if we had high quality healthcare in our country right now. But because of all the concerns over patient safety and the high rates of medical error in our country right now, that's why this field is exploding. And I think RN patient advocates are the best patient advocates out there. We know the system, we know the language, we know how to get the best possible care for our clients, and we are the most trusted profession in America too. So I'm right now I have a course, an online digital course that I'm teaching nurses around the country how to start their own patient advocacy business and hit the road running because I think our country has never needed highly qualified RN patient advocates more than it does right now. It's scary out there. It's called Nurse Advocate Entrepreneur. And we really need to get out there and start helping people because the government's not going to fix healthcare, ladies and gentlemen.
No, no, I am okay. I'm getting goosebumps, and I am going to tell every nurse I know,
Yeah.
um, because we need this. Because if I'm seeing it, I'm a realtor, so I get in these people's
Yeah.
homes, and I'm like, and I have story after story after story that this is a major accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, it is. And every time I talk to people, the saddest words we ever hear are, I wish I knew you when, you know?
Right. Right.
And it's,
One last question, because
yeah.
this comes up a lot. It's because, and I don't know why we have rampant Alzheimer's. Is it because people are living longer? Is it, I don't know the answer to that, but you would agree that it's here.
Mhm.
There's so much family denial.
Uh-huh.
So would you be somebody we could call as well? I mean, it's
Yes.
like, I know it, you know it when you see it, but these families like, oh no, they're going to be okay. I'm just going to have somebody come, or I'll do it, or
Mm,
they look away for 1 minute. That person's burned the house down, wandered off, whatever.
mm. Yeah. And the part that really concerns me too, Betsy, is that family members are getting burnt out to a crisp. So I'd say 30 to 40% of the calls that we get are related to a parent who has obvious signs of dementia. And sometimes you don't really know they have dementia until they're mid to later stages of dementia. And by then, the spouse has already lost 20 or 30 pounds and they're about
Right.
ready to hit a brick wall. They're losing weight, having health problems themselves. And the adult children are thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose both of my parents.
Right.
So there are strategies, whether you or not you can afford to stay at home or whether or not you have low income. There are options for everybody, but you don't know unless you ask a professional. And we can help people of any different income stream. And I am not a cookie cutter kind of a person. Whatever people want to do, nurse advocates come in and do motivational interviewing and find out what the patient wants. Because if the patient wants to stay in their own home, then we work with the family to try to make the patient's wishes come true if it's feasible and safe to make that happen.
Right, right.
Mm.
Well, Teri, you have been amazing. I cannot thank you enough.
Well,
Next time I see you in person, I'm going to get a big stack of your business cards. I'm going to put them in my car because I meet a lot of people, and you're going to say, stop, I got to hire 10 more nurses. But
oh,
I hope so, because even though it's so sad, you're here to help. So that's wonderful. I really am happy.
thanks.
So we could talk all day, but I will let you go. Again, thank you. And everybody, the sun was out, but let's hope spring is on its way. Have a good
Thanks
week.
a lot, Betsy.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Okay,
Okay.
bye.